There's two reasons to go get the original games. The first is if you want to go and open them, the feelies that they put inside were incredible. Having that Wishbringer stone around is really cool. I know it's just a lump of plastic that glows in the dark, but there's just something about it which was really neat. The art that they put, the art that Infocom put on their games was amazing. For not having any text or something, there's just something iconic about the Wishbringer hands, or having the word Zork in these crumbling letters and such. They did a great job on the packages. I think that really, if they were able to keep going and they still had the same creative people, yeah, there was a downturn in the market and such, but they just had really creative people putting together those packages. They're awesome. When I started to write games, I got a great appreciation for how well tested the Infocom games and the Magnetic Scrolls ones were. You really get an appreciation for the number of man hours that went through, because as an author, you have to have the faith of the player. You have to have your player think, especially when you're going through puzzles, that the problem is with them. They haven't thought everything through. They're missing a particular brainwave. Once a player realizes that, oh, I was doing everything right, it's just that the parser didn't understand the synonym I was trying to use, it's really tough to get the player back. And Infocom had just an amazing ability to get some really well-tested games, and you never lost faith. I think that the feelies they really add another dimension, and not only does it stop you from simply going onto the net at this point and grabbing the disc image and playing it, but to be able to experience the game even when you're not playing it is huge. That's critical. Before you go to bed, if you open up one of these novellas and read it, it gets you thinking about the games and the world that they created, even when you're not in front of the terminal. These games are always on eBay. I would say to anybody, if you get a chance to grab one of them, do it, open it up, take a look. There's great stuff in there. I love the Infocom games, but the Magnetic Scrolls ones and the Level 9 games, those are the ones that my brother and I would play when we were little. I remember it was probably at the end of interactive fiction, of it being this whole big thing. We got a brochure in the mail. You get 3 games for $15, and we were dumb kids, but we had $15, so we brought home, we were able to get The Pawn, Guild of Thieves, and Night Ark, and so had really good memories playing those games with my brother. And the Infocom games, really, aside from Zork and Zork 2, Zork 3, those I really got into later, after the fact.
Are sales good?
Sales are all right. Considering that we dumped it on the internet for free, I was actually really happy with it. I made 50 copies of Necrotic Drift. We were able to sell them all through the website. I think I threw the last few on eBay. So we were able to sell them through. I would guess perhaps if I did not release it for free, we might be able to move a few more copies. And I think what I would like to do for the next game is really give that a shot. I want to try a direct download experience. I want to let people buy the next game and also get some nice feelies along with it, a better instruction manual instead of just a PDF, and just see how it goes. And if I make 100 copies and nobody buys them, well, and a year later I'll just release it for free or something. So I was surprised with the amount that it did sell. It didn't take long to go through the 50 copies. When I knew that it was possible to make text games, I've never looked back. It's something I want to do for my whole life. It was an itch that I didn't know that I had until I started scratching it, and now it won't go away. It's a rash, I guess. You get an opportunity through text games to consider all situations and various paths. For instance, if I'm writing something in just straight text, because I think one day it's going to go to a novel, you've got to keep the reader's interest going down a very straight and narrow way. Text games allows the player or the reader to go and take a look at stuff that they might be interested in on their own. And with that in mind, it gives you an opportunity to fill out little subcompartments, little hidden caves of things you wanted to get off your chest, things you wanted to say, maybe little comedy bits that you wanted to do that really don't fit anywhere else. If it's the player who's going through and diving into this stuff, it's up to them. And that can be really freeing.
What inspired you to make Necrotic Drift? Why go for that subject matter? Why go that way?
Originally, Necrotic Drift was supposed to be a game that only consisted of zombies. At the time that I had conceived of it, we didn't really have zombies coming into the mainstream like we do now. Now, every year has several zombie movies. It's this whole big thing again. Originally, I wanted to do it as sort of a homage to Dawn of the Dead. Not knowing at the time that they were going to remake that movie and Shaun of the Dead was coming out and the rest of that stuff. So I wanted to do two things with Necrotic Drift. I wanted to have a bunch of monsters hanging about in this mall, and also write something that dealt with how I felt about relationships with some of the girls that I had dated in the past. The only puzzle that I did that I think is any good, most of my puzzles stink. The only one that I thought was any good was in Necrotic Drift, there is a part of the game where you are trying to get past a poltergeist. The poltergeist was really easy to code because I didn't necessarily have to use an object or anything like that. The way you get past the poltergeist is you are in the mall during the food court. And there's tables everywhere and there's chairs everywhere, all sorts of things you might see at the food court. The poltergeist only has power when you remove every single object from the room and dump it elsewhere. After you do that and don't give him any way to strike at you, you're able to proceed. That's probably the only puzzle of note that I did. The rest of them are just a bunch of talking to people and punching people in the face and shooting at kneecaps, which you could find anywhere. It's great to go out with your friends and shoot some pictures and put those into a text game. I've often wondered, hey, should I make a movie at some point? But the startup cost to get involved and finding people who can really act as opposed to people who can simply react to something for a still picture. Any one of my friends, and I'm not down to my friends here, any one of my friends can react if I tell them, hey, make it seem like a skeleton just tried to grope you. I mean, our friends can go like this, you snap the picture and that's fine. To make a movie would require people who could actually get in character and determine their motivation, things like that. So it's just a great way to involve my friends with my hobby. As we all get older and we go to different states and settle down in different cities, trying to find avenues to still share experiences with the friends that you've had for years becomes more difficult. Yeah, I'm amazed at the puzzles that I see in other games. And there have been many a night where I've tried to say to myself, all right, we're going to come up with a great puzzle here. And it's just the stuff that I come up with I don't think is as good as talking to the other characters and manipulating them instead of trying to operate a big machine or something. My theory has always been, if I get a good idea, it goes into the game I'm working on right now. So if I think of something that happens to be a puzzle that could work, boom, it goes right in, and we work on it that way. But yeah, for me, I think puzzles, I try to put them in when I can, but it's mostly about experiencing the scenes and talking to the other characters. For me, everybody else's games, I really like the writing. If I get stuck in a puzzle, what usually happens is, because there's thousands of games you can get now, not just text games, but everybody has a freeware game out. If I really get stuck in a puzzle and I'm enjoying the game because of the writing, I'll go through and hop on the IF mud to get a hint. I will attempt to see if there's a walkthrough, solve the puzzle, delete the walkthrough, and continue to enjoy the game that way. So puzzles are probably something that I am impressed with, but really bad at. I should probably express to you I'm a horrible game player. I'm not really good at this sort of thing in terms of playing games, be it text games or arcade games or shooters or anything like that.
But you have a training facility here.
Right, yeah, there's 3 games that I'm good at, and I own them all, so, right. I really love Adam Cadre's work. He cracks me up. We've got a similar sense of humor, or at least I find his sense of humor to be really funny. Interstate Zero is still probably the best game since the Infocom games that I enjoyed the most. Narcolepsy is another one that I really liked. In addition to that, there have been a few games that I also like from other people. Spider and Web is just brilliant. It's just one of those games, you're playing through Spider and Web and you're like, why didn't I think of that? The yes and no, continuing the plot is great when you mess up. the fact that the guy's being interrogated, and a lot of Andrew Plotkin's games have these, well, I don't know if a lot, but many of them have these machines that you would have to manipulate. And that little toolbox of stuff that you get to play with in Spider and Web was very approachable to me. I think that game is fantastic. The puzzle that I most remember probably came from a game called Night Orc. Night Orc is a game sort of like a MMORPG, but the computer plays everybody. And I remember, I don't even know if this is a puzzle as much as I really didn't like one of the characters in the game. I think the character was called Chris the Ant Warrior. I wanted to eliminate Chris the Ant Warrior. I remember that there was a vampire in one particular room. In Night Orc, if you start stealing gold from people, they will follow you around and try to get their stuff back. It's very realistic in that point, I suppose. So after nicking something from Chris the Ant Warrior, I went up to this room where the vampire was, jumped inside. Chris followed me. At that point, the vampire said, "Hey, there's 2 victims here," and went and started sucking on Chris the Ant Warrior. And I remember when I was doing that, of course, later I would realize, hey, this is, emerging gameplay or something like that. I was just stunned. That was fantastic. I got rid of somebody who I didn't like, used the game itself to do it, and I have no idea if that was intended or anything of the like, but that was really brilliant. I think pictures are great. I like them lots. People have said that it's easy to keep track of characters when they're being introduced at a rapid rate when they have their picture up on the screen. I think a lot of people, perhaps in other countries where it's a little bit more difficult for them to download 38 megabytes of content, may say, hey, I don't really need these pictures. And I understand that. But I think it's great. Having graphics up on the screen is fantastic. I think at some point, perhaps, we'll get a game that uses AVIs or possibly animated GIFs to take that even further. I love them. I think they're great. I'll probably go and seek out a game that's got some pictures in it or something like that, as opposed to another straight text one, just due to the novelty. I'll hang out at the IF Mud and we'll go and have a laugh about something. We'll talk about things. There is let's see. There's a good sense of community there. We're all in the same boat together. We all want to have our games be as good as possible. And they're good people, too. The people that I have met over the internet and met in real life who make text games are really good people. And I've had a great time every time I've had an opportunity to get together with them. I think there might be a couple types. There may be the person who is interested from a computer science standpoint of putting together big machines, putting together some things having to deal with science. There might also a lot of puzzles you'll find in those kinds of games. I think there also might be another style where it's like, I want to tell you a story. Here are a bunch of people going around and doing wacky things. If there's a puzzle, it's because you simply need to overcome some things you might find in real life as well. Possibly the whole, I'm into the fiction part of interactive fiction versus I'm into the programming part of interactive fiction. I think, you know what, I'd have to say that I think that if some of the games, perhaps Fallacy of Dawn, got in front of a whole bunch of people, I think people could dig it. It's a game featuring nerds talking about old video games. I mean, who wouldn't like that sort of thing? However, at least for me personally, it's intimidating to be in front of thousands of people, all of which who have this opinion of your work, which may be positive, which may be negative. If I was to look at it, I would say, okay, I know that the IF community is going to go and play this game, and I know what to expect here. I've been through people trashing earlier buggy versions of the game. God only knows what's out there for the rest of the internet. You got to psych yourself up to it, I think. You have to tell yourself, all right, there's going to be a bunch of people who are going to hate what you do no matter what. There's going to be a bunch of people who, even though you tried to create a sympathetic character right from the beginning, will see that guy as a weasel or something like that. And you're never going to be able to capture those people. And at least for me, there's the logistics of it and trying to really understand that there's going to be a whole bunch of people who think that what you spent all this time on sucked. It's a little intimidating. The thing is that when I finish one, that's when I start thinking about the next one. And so far, I've been able to come up with a new scenario each time. And I know that if there ever comes a day where I don't have new plots and new characters and new genre, a lot of the games that I did before, it would be fun to revisit and do a sequel and get back together with the people who posed for pictures and that sort of thing. But usually, there's probably stuff working in the back of my mind, but for instance, it wasn't until I finished Fallacy of Dawn that I even began to think of Necrotic Drift. It wasn't until I finished Necrotic Drift where I thought, hey, it would be great to put a game on Phobos and eventually make Pantomime. And the same with the new one. The whole field of cryptozoology never occurred to me until I finished Pantomime and started thinking about what I'm going to do next. I think the joy of the magic of a magnetic scrolls game is you're able to see text games from a British perspective of the United Kingdom. They had a different way of speaking to the player. There's a sense of humor was everywhere in the games, and not that they weren't in Infocom as well, but much in the same reason you may click on the TV and enjoy an American comedy, you might still like Blackadder and Red Dwarf if you're an American and enjoy that style. The pictures on both Magnetic Scrolls games and Level 9 are gorgeous. They're just amazing. The artists that they had were fantastic. To any text game person, if you say The Pawn, you're immediately going to think of the wizard out there in front of the mountains in the background with your silver wristband. You might think of, if you played enough of The Pawn, of the guru who was sitting there eating his rice in his orange robe, who was laughing at you constantly. The images that they were able to present are they're fantastic because they've also got those pictures in there as well. Level 9 games did some weird experiments. I think they had one game where they advertised several thousand rooms, although only really about 200 of them were distinct. But at the same time, they were also able to crank out Scapegoat, which is an amazing adventure game. You play the part of a cop who got killed, and now you are trying to go and solve your own mystery and free the hostage. And the pictures that they put along with the games are all framed, at least in the first part, by the tombstone that you might have. And of course, your coworkers thought you were an idiot for getting yourself killed. They didn't realize that you were framed. And so there's a good analog to there as to when you go back to work in real life and your coworkers also think you're an idiot. Level 9 also gave you Night Arc, where you get the chance to play a bad guy. And with Night Arc, Night Arc is sort of like an online role-playing game, and as a bad guy, you're probably going to play that way anyway if you jumped onto EverQuest or Ultima Online, so it was nice to see them give you an opportunity to play how you would play anyway with a whole bunch of humans. Oh, okay. Oh, there's one other thing about both those games. They had their own take on feelies as well. They would go and I think subcontract a author to write stories that went along with the games. For The Pawn, there's this nice little fairy tale, professionally written, very entertaining about the stuff that leads up to it. Guild of Thieves has what I think is still the best newsletter, newspaper, brochure type thing, which a lot of text games do. Future Boy did it, and I tried to do it with Necrotic Drift. And the gold standard is really What Burglar, which is the little magazine that comes with Guild of Thieves. It is absolutely hilarious. And then likewise, with Night Arc, it has a novella in it, which introduces you to a lot of the characters that you'll find in the game itself. When I originally started writing Hugo, I did a game called A Crimson Spring. This was back in 2000. And at the time, Hugo had really good multimedia capabilities. I wanted to write something that sort of looked like a Magnetic Scrolls game. When I was doing A Crimson Spring, I could not really get the screen looking how I wanted, so I did the best I could. Hugo really had the best capabilities at the time. So I jumped on Hugo, and after going through the learning curve with Hugo, I've stuck with it since. Secondly, Ken Testament has been great when it comes to Hugo. You can send him an email at any time. But there's got to be 30 or 40 Ken Testaments out there who are just answering emails, making movies, doing their own things. So the support that I got from the author of the language was really good. The other thing relating to movies versus text games is it's the same thing with novels. With a movie, maybe you can do an alternate ending and people are okay with that. But you don't really have separate branches, I guess unless you were making the movie Clue. But with text games, you still have that. You've got various paths to go down. What I'm hoping when somebody plays one of my games is that they're able to enjoy spending time with the characters. They're able to enjoy the characters talking to each other and picking through a list of of things that they might say in that character's roles. Some of the characters in my games are based off people I'm fond of, people that I know, and it's a way to help share the fond experiences that I've had with my friends with others. For games in the interactive fiction competition, you kind of want to go a little more mainstream with that. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody cares, but really, the people judging the competition, I've found, really aren't into a whole lot of profanity. They feel that, hey, if you want to make a adult interactive fiction game, an AIF game, go join one of their competitions. I'm not saying everyone is like this, and I'm not even saying that people are like this since the last time that I entered. But definitely when I was writing No Time to Squeal with Mike Sousa, I think we made certain, hey, we're not going to have a whole lot of cursing and swearing in this. Just, you know, our goal was to win the competition. Let's not lose points from any of the judges by having a whole lot of swear words in there when we could go around it. Yeah, I entered the competition a few times. Originally in 1999, I entered it with Chick Stick Jerks. Took 31st place, I think, which is even worse than it sounds, and it sounds pretty bad. When I wrote that game, that was the first game that I really sent out to a lot of people to see. And my idea of what testing was in interactive fiction was rather skewered. I didn't think there was a whole lot to that game. It's really just 2 scenes. But the bugs that people found were numerous. Entered it again the next year with A Crimson Spring. And that game could have also used more testing, to be completely honest. And then finally, I think we got it right in 2001 when I entered it with Mike Sousa, who's an excellent programmer. Really kept me focused. The game that we entered then, No Time to Squeal, took 4th place. And that was really satisfying. It was good to see. It was a great experience with the competition. The graphics in the game, I put together not knowing anything about digital illustration, how to get images into Photoshop. I think they was described as they were described as looking like the colored pencils were at work here. And anytime someone lets loose with a colored pencils blast, that's especially humiliating. I mean, you don't wake up every day and think, well, I really did good work on that one. However, at the same time, I haven't quite had the confidence to simply put a game out there that you have to buy. It's fun to go make physical manifestations of your game. It's nice to have something up on the mantle you can look at and say, yeah, you know what, I did that. It's not just a bunch of code on the computer. This is something that I can put in my hands.